I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're venturing into the heart of geopolitical intrigue with Tom Gilroy. He's an amazing author who's written a powerful book. It is called Out of Season. This novel takes us back to the early 1980s, amidst the backdrop of the Chad-Libya conflict, weaving a tale of intelligence, power, and the long shadows of colonialism. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank our team at Bookside Press for helping us put him in the spotlight today. We ask viewers like you to support writers like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his wonderful book. The links are below this interview. Tom, great to see you here today on Spotlight.
Thank you, Logan. I appreciate your having me on.
This is a terrific book. It reads very, very real. Of course, it's based on a true life conflict, a true life situation. You have a background as a reporter as well. That must have helped in crafting this novel, right?
Yeah. In fact, the main character is a down on his luck freelance journalist, and so I sort of told the story around what I knew.
Exactly. A stringer, as we like to call them, those freelancers.
Exactly, a stringer.
Yeah, without a doubt. Tell us, let's give the folks at home an overview. What is Out of Season about?
Okay, it's so this reporter, his name's Mark Riley, goes to he's covered the war in Chad a couple of times already. He goes back hoping for a big story because he's almost broke and he needs to sort of reestablish his credentials as a journalist. He thinks he's found a big story or stumbled on one when he realizes that Chad is being flooded with US dollars, millions of them. And that actually happened for no apparent reason. I mean, it's an old French colony and one of the poorest places on earth. And suddenly it's awash in US dollars. He thinks he's got a big story, but a French colonialist, if you know what the ancien colon, they called them, they were Frencher than French, but had never lived in France. They had been born and raised in the old colonies, and they, beyond conservative, hated independence when they came because they lost their privileges and that sort of thing. Anyway, this fellow Calvati comes along and offers Mark thousands of dollars to not write the story about dollars. And that sort of triggers the whole thing. They end up, when Mark goes back to Douala, Cameroon, which is his home, Calvati follows him, offers him even more dollars to start just a little import company. Mark, he's skeptical, but the dollars are real, and he needs them very badly. And by the time he figures out that Calvati is in cahoots with Libyans to bypass or skirt the U.S. embargo on oil parts to Gaddafi's Libya, Mark is being chased by some very bad guys in two different intelligence services. And so the book is kind of a cat and mouse between Mark, who knows Africa very well, and intelligence services. And he thinks, because he knows Africa very well and its geography very well, he can pull it off, make what Calvati has offered is $250,000. And if you remember the 80s, $250,000
a lot of money
was real money. And he thinks he can pull it off without breaking any laws and live happily ever after. And the second half of the book is a chase. He's trying to stay one step ahead of both the French and the American intelligence services, and they're not nice people. And behind it all is a shadowy Libyan by the name of Halud, who also wants him dead. And the climax of the book, it's a deadly confrontation that takes place in a game park in northern Cameroon.
So you not only borrowed from your reporter brain, but you also borrowed from your traveler brain. You worked in the Peace Corps as well, and you know Africa very well.
Right. I lived in a village by myself in Senegal for 2 years when I was 22, 23.
Mhm.
So I knew, and I traveled a bit then. And then when I went back as a reporter, I was married to a woman I met in the Peace Corps.
Mhm.
I'm still married to her. And I traveled extensively. That Central West Africa and the old French part of French West Africa. Gabon,
Mhm.
Chad, of course, Equatorial Guinea, Nigeria, the one English colony. So I knew I spent a lot of time in not beautiful, they
Right.
were not resorts.
Right. Tough places, challenging places for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So I did
Now,
borrow on that. I basically, I would say that virtually every place that's in out of season I've been to.
right. Now I can see Mark played by a young Harrison Ford in an upcoming film.
That'd
Um,
be all right. Yeah,
we'll have to de-age
it,
through AI processing
yeah,
Harrison
exactly.
Ford to play the role. But the question is, have you envisioned this as a movie? It seems like it's got the great locales, it's got great characters, it's got a lot of international intrigue. It seems like it's got the makings of a film.
That'd be great. It's kind of funny how I wrote the first draft
Mhm.
in the late 1980s.
Okay.
Okay. We had come back we moved from Cameroon to Paris. I worked as a reporter for Reuters, the British
Mhm.
news agency, for years in Paris. And then when we moved back to California, I decided to try my hand. They say every reporter has one novel in them.
Yeah.
That was my shot. And
Right.
I wrote it, I finished it. And then what is now a division of Bloomberg News came calling and offered me a job. And
Mhm.
so the novel went on a shelf and
Right.
stayed there until COVID. And I pulled it out. God love her, my wife kept one copy.
Wow.
It was, yeah, it was on a dot matrix printer, if you even
Okay.
remember those.
Yeah, I do. I
Anyway,
do.
I pulled it out of the closet. I spent
Mhm.
like 3 years rewriting, editing until I was happy with it.
Wonderful. So are you envisioning now a sequel? Are you envisioning writing more novels? What's your next step?
Well, I'd like to see how this does.
Mhm.
It took a lot. I really spent a lot of time and a lot of effort getting it to where I was satisfied with it. Actually, it's funny. Several friends have read it, liked it very much, and want me to write a sequel. So
Right.
we'll see.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it sounds like Mark could be a recurring character in a number of books. A,
Yeah,
a journalist is basically an investigator. An investigator gets into all kinds of trouble at times, depending on what he or she is investigating, right?
that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
And he gets in a lot of trouble.
So you wound up spending your whole career started at Reuters and spent your whole career in journalism.
I did. I did. I went to work for what was then called the Bureau of National Affairs. It's a news agency based in Washington, D.C. And Michael Bloomberg bought them
Hmm.
when I was there. And it's now, I'm retired, but
Yeah,
it is now a division of Bloomberg News.
gotcha. Now, as an old news guy, not that you're old, but you did it for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
What do you make of what's going on with journalism today?
That's a good question. I think that the uh, certainly you're in the TV business.
Mhm.
I think obviously some of the TV news, and I don't want to get into politics here,
Sure,
but
no,
you
but
know,
everybody, there's guilty suspects everywhere.
right,
Yeah,
right. Some of it is so biased and simply it doesn't seem to me that I went to Columbia Journalism School,
mm,
and there they just hammer the idea that you have to get facts right. You can't
right,
fudge anything. It's got to be, and you got to prove it. You can't just assume that it's correct.
right,
And now it seems like you don't even have to worry about
right.
whether what you're saying is actually true.
Right. You read
And there's
something
way
on a blog post, and now
oh
you're reporting it as a published report indicates.
Right.
I mean, it's
Right.
just like unbelievable. I started out in journalism at CBS, and we had a blue book of standards,
Right.
all of
Right.
which are completely violated today. But
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
amazing. Well, I'm glad you set your book back in the 80s, where, of course, you began writing it, because that was a good era for journalism. It was when Dan Rather was ascending and other top journalists were making their mark, people like you as well. And this is quite a story you've come up with, and I do think it's got the makings of a film. The name of the book
Uh,
is what's go. I'm sorry.
no, I was going to say, I appreciate your kind thoughts. Maybe that will
Yep.
happen.
Once you put the work out there, you never know where it's going to wind up, right?
Right.
Christopher
Right.
Nolan could wind up writing it and, say, hey, get in touch with this guy, Tom Gilroy. This is an amazing book. It's like a message in a bottle. That's what we say about show business. But the
Right.
book is
Right.
called Out of Season. It takes us back to the early 1980s, the conflict taking place in Chad, Libya, when the author, Tom Gilroy, weaves a tale of intelligence, power, and the long shadows of colonialism. It's a riveting story. It's a page turner. It's been decades in the making, but it was worth the wait because it is out now and it is quite a read. Tom, thanks so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
It was my pleasure, Logan. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure is all mine, my friend. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.